Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta Ndlela. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. Communication and soft skills are crucial for your career growth and leadership development. And by the end of this episode, please log on to Apple and Spotify and leave us a rating and a review. Now let's get communicating with Beate Chelette, who is a growth architect and is here to help us learn the tips and the strategies to be able to design our unapologetic value proposition so we know how to communicate what we are good at. And before I go any further, please help me welcome her to the show. Hi, Beate.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, Roberta.
My absolute pleasure. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm known as a growth architect, and I'm also the founder of the Women's Code, wrote a book, Happy Woman, Happy World, run a podcast, the Business Growth Architect Show, where I talk a lot about strategy. And my claim to fame is I built and sold a business to Bill Gates. I was a single mom. I was $135,000 in debt, broke, had no idea how I was going to survive, and had to figure out how to crack the code. And then when I did sell my business for millions. And now I'm here to tell the story.
Wow. Anybody with those huge student loan debts, I hope they're listening and taking notes. And so when you sold that business, okay, first of all, how do you know that it's time to let that go? Do they make you an offer that's so hard to refuse, or and did they give you the real value of what you thought your business was worth at the time?
Well, I mean, selling a business is a strategy. Called an exit strategy. And I have built the business, that particular business, to be sold. When I got the number, and I had a very distinct number in mind, when I did get that number and the day came where somebody gave me that number, the day just came to sell the business. So it's not that you run a business and then somehow out of the blue somebody comes and just throws money at you. It's a deliberate action that you take in building a business, setting it up for acquisition, telling people that it's available for acquisition, and then making sure that your systems, processes, and strategies are clearly in place. You communicate the value of the business and you position in such a way that somebody then comes and says, I would like to buy that. And then you negotiate and hopefully you get to close the deal.
Mm-hmm. And yes, because I've had guests in the show before who've talked about how the minute you start the business, you think about exiting. So you set up those systems, as you said. And now, do you help clients with a similar service?
Yes. So, as the growth architect, my specialty or my superpower is to help people figure out their unapologetic value position, their differentiation factor, their way to stand out from anybody else. So I can listen to somebody talk to me about what they do, and then instantly I just kind of know how to position it so it doesn't sound like anybody else. And what's interesting, Roberta, about this is that most people that are concerned about what differentiates them take the thing that makes them different and completely discount that because they are just not used to recognizing that something that's easy for them has any value. And I'm going to give you an example to make this come to life for your audience. I was doing a talk at Merck Pharmaceuticals, and we did a breakout session for the unapologetic value proposition. And there was a gentleman, and I was watching him, and everywhere he went, everybody's like, Hey, Joe, how are you doing, Joe? Great to see you, Joe. He had a joke for everybody. Everybody loved him. And when we were sitting in this meeting or in this breakout session talking about the unapologetic value proposition, he says to me, I don't really see how I have anything that stands out. And I said to him, just judging by the little bit I've seen you interact, I said, would it be a fair statement to say that there is not one room you go into where people not immediately happy to see you? That's true. I said, is it true that everywhere you go, people just want to talk to you, tell you stuff, and that if there was a crisis, it's really super easy for you to get people on the same page. And he goes like, yeah, well, doesn't everybody know how to do that? I said, that's your super skill.
Either he thinks that, or sometimes we think the stuff that you cannot articulate on a resume is not of value, so to speak, to a potential client. Like, imagine if you wrote on a resume, okay, my name is Joe, and whenever I walk into a room, people smile and want to talk to me. You think, does anybody put that on a resume?
That's a very good point. I like that. Yes. Well, I think that to your point, we then want to be creative around it, and I would love to hear what you do in a case like that. But my recommendation would be is to put in a line about my super skill is to put people at ease, to get the most complicated people to come to an agreement, and to have everybody leave any room smiling.
Which is a very important skill. I mean, here we
Huge.
talk about soft skills, how when you're a leader, that's how your team should feel, so that they feel free to share their innovative ideas and create that kind of culture. But we've become so accustomed to saying, worked at, General Motors, did this and this and that. And I remember sometimes you'll have a career specialist who says, people don't even quantify and say, when I came, they were making $500,000 a month. And after I did this, it became $1 million a month. We don't even do that. We just know how to list and say, worked here, did this. And that's why we all sound the same.
I think you're absolutely correct. So we want to go into this a little bit deeper and say, well, what makes you different? What makes you special? Anybody could have worked at General Motors. Anybody could have worked at Merck Pharmaceuticals. Anybody could have gotten a job. But it is the results or how we make people feel that's what people are hiring you for, because they can train you to do the job. But the stuff that makes you outstanding, nobody can train you for. That's a skill that you come with. And it is your job to tell everybody that. I did a series of interviews during the pandemic about the future of leadership, and I interviewed a bunch of C-level executives, and I asked them all what matters now, and they all said the same thing. They said, I need somebody to walk into my office and without any of the fluff, just sit down and say, here's what I'm good at. Here's where I can help you. Here's where I can shine, and this is what I can solve for you. And I want this to be done in minutes so that they can look at you and you say, great, I know exactly where you put it. But what happens is that people walk into their room and then they go like, well, I really want a manager position. Now it's like a fishing expedition. Well, why would I promote you to a manager? Well, promote me and then I'll show you. Well, wrong answer. Then you come back 6 months later. I want to be a manager position. Why do you want to be a manager? Well, because I've taken 3 Udemy courses now on communication and relationship building. Well, that's wonderful. Well, where do you see your role in the company? Well, that's your job to tell me where you see me. Okay. 6 months later. And so it just keeps repeating itself over and over again for the one reason only that this person is completely failing at saying, hey, whenever I go in a room and there's a problem, a conflict, handoffs between departments, that's where I shine. I can make anybody get along with each other. And no matter how big of an adversary they were or how charged the situation is, everybody walks out of a room that I've been in with a smile. So you put me in the most difficult rooms and I'll take care of that. Now, that is what I want to
And wouldn't that just not work in a team setting or, interdepartmental conflict? But, sometimes as customers, if I'm not happy and I was paying the company for a service and something just triggered me, I'm done. So I walk out with my money and no longer hire them as my service providers. And people with that skill, don't they sometimes, bring the customer back in that situation because they know how to mediate, how to resolve that dissatisfaction?
That could be absolutely another part of this where somebody like this could say, I'm currently in this department, but I am wanting to have you help me uh, create a career path toward customer service, because especially with the high ticket clients, to make sure that our retention rate goes up because I feel that I can sniff out a conflict before it even can happen. Huge value. What would that be worth it to you if our retention would go from 6 months to 1 year, or our retention would go from 3 years to 5 years? What's the value of that? It's hugely valuable, but you have to make a value proposition to tell them.
Right. And then coming back to the example you gave of, I want to be a manager, I took some courses, I think I deserve it. It's your job to find me a managerial position. Wouldn't it partly be true? But also, yes, I know I take responsibility for my career. But wouldn't your leader be the one to give you some form of direction if you've also taken some initiative as well in that regard?
Well, that would mean that you assume that your leader is a leader and got that kind of mentorship. But if your leader has had never any mentorship, they simply don't know. So can you rely on that? I wouldn't. And look at what happens in layoffs. In layoffs, companies take this as an excuse to take the most experienced and most expensive people and lay them off and replace them with people that are inexpensive and inexperienced and hope for the best. Now, somebody who's just get promoted into a position without the experience or without the leadership training or without having been mentored or without having been, fostered by someone, they just simply don't know. You can wait until your life is over for somebody like that to give you an opportunity because they're struggling just to appear like they're a leader or a manager themselves. So I do not believe that you should leave any of this up to chance. I think you should be in charge of where you take this career and be able to pitch at any time to anyone because that is the art of persuasion. That's the art of advancement is by knowing who you are, positioning this as an advantage to solve other people's problems. That's the fastest way to get to advancement anywhere.
Hmm. They say the best leaders are the ones who grow their team so well that they become replaceable.
That's the whole idea. The whole idea.
Yeah.
And I think men are much better with succession planning than women are because men typically walk into someone's office when they get the job and they say, I want your job. And a good leader should say, as you should.
Instead
As
of
you should.
feeling threatened.
Women, women say, you B word, how dare you want my job? And then they'll do everything to not have this person advance until the other woman either has to go over them or around them. And they'll never advance, which is why so many women get stuck in middle management and never advance because they are protecting their jobs instead of looking for advancements. Huge difference between men and women. Generalizing, yes, but true for the most part.
But if you think about it, Beate, I fully agree with you. There's this scarcity mentality with women because even in middle management, we don't make the percentages of middle managers. So they think the percentages are even smaller if you go up to the C-suite. So there's hardly any chance I will go up. So I better stay here for the security of it until retirement. Wouldn't that sometimes be the thinking behind that?
Uh, yes, I think that the thinking is a lot of scarcity. It's better to have this than have nothing at all. If I prove my value in this, I can stay here forever. Part of it is a lot of women are mothers, so they cannot aim for the big corner office positions because it requires them to put in a certain amount of time that they cannot do because they have to be at 5 o'clock at school to pick up their kids. That's a detriment. Part of it is the pay inequality. The partner that makes the most money, which is almost always the man, will have priority over his schedule. So that means that his stuff always takes priority over the woman. And that makes the woman, fall back into her traditional role and typically fall back in her career as well. These are things that are systematically wrong because, in my book, Happy Woman, Happy World, I write about this. And I'm always shocked that when when I hear that women are telling their bosses that they're pregnant, like you think this is the first time it's ever happened. Like you think that the notion that women are this the gender that is responsible for the survival of our race. You think that men in corporations have never ever heard of that before because the look of shock is genuine. It's like you go, what? But they can't do that anymore. But women get punished for having babies. And I think that there is so much wrong in this system, in this old business system, and this whole other generation of Gen Z and Gen Y. They're revolting against this because they see what it's doing to us. They see what it does to people that are having heart attacks and strokes. They never get to enjoy their lives, and they go like, "We want to enjoy our life now. We want to enjoy our relationships now. We want to have children now. We don't want to feel like having a baby and enjoying our small child is wrong somehow or that we get punished for it." So I think there's a huge push for that in corporate America specifically to say, this is just not right.
Hmm. Were you born in the US?
No, I was born in Germany.
Because I believe in some European countries, I'm not specifically sure which ones, that it's illegal to call someone about work after hours and on weekends. Like they sort of restrict, that so that your life is balanced. After hours, go to the beach, go have a pizza instead of
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah,
just
like
work,
France, I
work,
think
work.
France specifically, a
Mm.
lot of the countries like Denmark, Sweden, they have huge protections for families because they're also small countries. Like Denmark and Sweden are very small countries. So preserving moms having babies and protecting them is in their own best interest because they're so tiny that they're such a small speck on the planet that they cannot afford to become any smaller. So they have figured that out. And the happiness of people like living in Norway is off the charts. People love being in these places because there is a balance, and the unhappiness in America is palpable. In Germany, when you have a baby, you have a 1 year protection and you get paid by the government to be at home and to take care of your child. My daughter just had a child. She's not getting a dime, not a cent because
Even South Africa has 4-month paid maternity leave.
she didn't get anything because there's been the writers strike and the actor strike, so she hadn't been working because of the strike. And because she hadn't been working, she technically was unemployed. And because she was unemployed, her her scenario didn't change. So she wasn't losing anything by having this baby. That's the United States for you.
Wow, wow. And then let's talk about, so now I want to completely revolutionize my resume and learn to present myself in a way, the unapologetic value proposition. So what is the first thing? What's the first inventory exercise, so to speak? What do I need to do first to establish what I'm good at?
Yeah. So the inventory is that you need to think about what is it that you do where others tell you, Roberta, that's amazing. You are so good at X. And I want you to call your colleagues and people who know you or have worked with you and just ask them the questions like, if you were to describe what I'm really good at, what would that be? And then just write that down. Don't be judgmental. Don't be weird about it. Don't think it's awkward. People like to help. You just say, "Listen, I'm getting ready to brush up my resume. I'm doing an exercise, and I need to ask 10 people to talk about what I'm really good at. So if you were to describe me to somebody, what would you say?" That typically gets you a pretty good idea of what you're good at. Or people say, "Oh, that's so easy. You always been such a peacemaker," or "There's not a room you can't walk in that doesn't light up when you go in." So you write all of this down without any judgment. The second thing you do is you think about the position that you want to go after what is the actual problem that this position solves? Is it, like in your example in customer service, increasing retention from 6 months to a year? So you have to be very clear and say, well, the reason I want this position is because I want not to be in customer service. I want to help this company to get their retention rate from 6 months to 1 year.
Right.
That's tangible. Then you need to make a business case. That's the third piece. And the business case is why you. And the business case is made by you understanding what the numbers are. Typically, in a business like this, the retention rate for something like this is 6 months. That cost for the company is for them to lose this client and replace the client is $50,000. My goal is to increase this retention rate from 6 months to 1 year, because we believe that once people are with us for a year, that the renewal is going to be even better, that they'll stay in for 2 years. So now we went from 6 to 1 to 2 years. That means at a replacement rate of $50,000 every 6 months, we are now looking at a savings for the company of $150,000 per client. Now you pitch your business case. The reason I want to do this is because I believe that with my super skill of helping people to feel heard and seen, to sniff out problems before they even occur, to have a process and a system in place to regularly contact our high ticket clients to make sure that they're taken care of and they feel that we are on top of everything. I feel confident that I can on average help the company to retain 10 clients for 6 months longer than they usually would, which is a $300,000 savings. All I'm asking for is a $150,000 salary, and therefore you coming out ahead with $150,000.
Oh, that's good math. That's really good math. And I'm thinking in that case, in the business case part, what if, sometimes you have project teams where everybody just does things with everyone else and it overlaps. So you don't specifically have those numbers for you specifically to say this is what you've accomplished in terms of the business case part. Can you still do that, present yourself that way and say, if you look at my track record, if you don't have those specific numbers, is it possible to have a track record so far since I came to the company? This is what I've saved the company. This is what I've made more for the company.
Well, then what you do is you just go in and you say, based on my research, I have found that in a typical company, so you take it away from yourself, a typical company loses clients after 6 months. My interest in this is that I'm going to commit to taking what I already know how to do, is to sniff out problems before they occur, to provide excellent communication skills between different parties. And I want to build a system, co-create a system with you that you can take full credit for because I'll be working for you. You are the boss. But that we co-create a system that will ensure in the future that we are plugging this leak that costs the company so much money. My estimate is that if we build a system like this, not just would we in the first year provide a plug of 10 clients, but over the span of 5 years, we probably could save 500 client relationships to stay longer. And if the average is $50,000, then there is your savings. It's, whatever, $2.5 million that we can save the company. So you make a case either by something you know how to do or by something you intend to do. You don't have to take credit for something you haven't done, but you can say, I want to innovate this. Because bosses like innovation and thought leadership. So
Of
then
course.
position yourself as a thought leader.
Mm. And the thing, because here's the thing, when we always say to people, quantify what you're capable of on your resume to increase your chances to stand out from everyone else, that's the same thing when you're actually asking for a promotion. And what about when you're just asking for a raise? You know, inflation is high. People are finding it a challenge to budget with their current salaries. Can you use the same strategy to say, you know, even if the promotion actual position is not there, but to fight the case for an
Yes,
increase in
absolutely.
salary?
Yeah. Like the one thing that you cannot do, you cannot go in the office of the boss and say, I deserve a raise. Nobody cares. Like nobody cares what you think you deserve. When you go into the boss's office, you better tell them on how you make their lives easier or better, or what problem you're going to solve for them, how much time and money that will free up for them, how much less they need to think about one particular thing, why you are the right person to do this. That's it. It's very simple. But I see this again and again. I remember when I was at this company and I had this woman literally walk into my office. She says, I want you to promote me to manager. And I said, that's my example. I never forgot this. And I said, why would I do that? She says, well, make me a manager and then I show you. And I said, this is not the way this works. You have to show me first that you have the capacity, the capabilities of being a manager. And I need to know from you exactly what you would do as a manager that would make this run better. She never did. I never promoted her. When I
Of
left,
course.
my successor promoted her. And she was such a bad manager that she put an employee in gave a literally was responsible for terrorizing an employee and giving her a mental breakdown, who had then to go on medical leave for over 6 months, and then she quit.
So did you, what she was coming with, that I deserve mindset?
Yeah, I've been here long enough. I deserve to be a manager.
There are people who've been in the same position for 30 years. If they don't produce the results or solve the problems, it's not about deserving.
And it's amazing to me on how this sense of entitlement really has such a foothold in people's heads. And I think, honestly, Roberta, that a lot of it is our parents, especially in America, where parents, give you like you get a medal for just being there. That would never happen in Germany.
Not
Just
in South
because,
Africa either. Well,
just
maybe
be,
this generation. I'm in
yeah,
my
just
40s.
just because you were on the team, but the team lost the every game, you get nothing. And here you get the, you know what, you tried your best consolence prize, and that makes people expect that the world is like their parents. Doesn't matter on whether you're good or bad. We're going to reward you just for showing up. And that's, I think, where what we see a lot in the workplace, that just because you show up means nothing. Nothing.
Absolutely. That's why it's competitive. It doesn't mean anything at all. So, any last words for someone who wants to now structure their unapologetic value proposition? What's the last thing you want to say to them?
You got to be very clear about that this good girl, good boy behavior will not get you anywhere in life. That in business, on whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are a business owner, whether you have an idea, whether you are employed, you have to be at all times be able to make a case for anything you're pitching. If you master that, you can and will go far. You don't master that, I can guarantee you stay where you are.
Make a case for what you are pitching. Words of wisdom from Beate Chelette from Los Angeles in the US, originally from Germany. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today. We've heard so many career coaches, but this was a different perspective. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Roberta. It was a pleasure to be on your show.
My absolute pleasure as well. And before you go, where can we find you and more information on Growth Architect?
Yes, so just go and check out either thewomenscode.com or my website at beatechelette.com. The Women's Code is more for women in career advice. The Growth Architect is about strategies and systems and processes on how to advance and build businesses. and reach out to me on social media. Check out the podcast, get the book. And if there's anything we can help you with, go to uncoveriesession.com and get a 15-minute session booked with our business growth advisor. And then we'll help you to figure out where you're stuck, what maybe your best next step should be. We're here to help in whatever way to achieve what you want to achieve and what is success for you in this lifetime. Sound completely went out.
Details of the podcast. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. For some reason, you just disappeared here for a second.
Oh, sorry about the tech issues. Please give us the title of your podcast and also where we can find the book, Happy Woman, Happy World.
Yes, the title of the podcast is The Business Growth Architect Show, available wherever you pick up a podcast. And then you pick up the book at Happy Woman, Happy World on Amazon as an audiobook, an ebook, and as a printed book.
Excellent stuff. Thank you, Beate. This has been awesome. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.